Most people come up with an idea in the bath. They get so excited about that idea that they just go hell for leather, spend their own money, build a brand, build a website, build a product, spend thousands, and then go, right, let's try and get customers now. And then realizing that people don't get it, people don't understand it, people don't need it, people want something slightly different. And instead of iterating a product, you just keep spending money on marketing and keep trying to push it, and eventually you go bankrupt.
Welcome to the Balanced Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Matt Southam. Here, we delve into candid conversations with entrepreneurs, exploring both their business journey and their secrets to maintaining mental well-being. As we navigate the balance of ambition and inner peace, I hope you find insights, inspiration, and invaluable takeaways in every episode. Thank you for joining us. Hi, David. Welcome to the show today. Before we dive into exactly what you do now for people, give me the background. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So let's see how far I can go back. So I went to university and I was looking for a job as a graphic designer because I did sort of media animation and stuff like that. But there wasn't really a commercial viability for that. So I thought, right, I'll go into graphic design. So I spent a long time looking for a job, eventually got one of a really, really low salary, did a couple of years working as a senior designer, as a junior designer at first, working in the health food space and sports nutrition space. So I did a lot of adverts in kind of muscle men magazines. I actually had a whole load of muscle men magazines, which is quite funny, but in there was like my ad that I designed for some big protein product, and I was like, yeah, look at me, I'm a published, forget the actual publication, but I'm there, I'm published, I'm famous, so that was like my first bit of success. Then I left that to become a senior designer in a company called team building company. So they do corporate events for some big corporations, stuff like that. But at the same time, I was also doing a lot of music. And I actually found that getting up for a job in the morning was very crashing hard with doing late night gigs as well. So I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll go freelance. Had a couple of projects, which sort of allowed me, and I had a bit of a bonus from that job. So I had enough money to sort of go freelance. So I went freelance, was doing that for a bit. Again, like kind of bumbling through, ran out of money quite quickly. I actually ended up on housing benefit at one point because it was that bad. But then something happened, and I was living in Bournemouth, right? And I decided to move to London. And the funny thing was the house that I moved into, I couldn't do housing benefit, which was a really good thing because it really made me kick. I was quite young, but it made me kick up the arse and actually started to I said, I've got to get my own portfolio together. I've got to kind of scrape together all the projects, potentially all the big brand projects that I've done, getting them a portfolio. I bought a domain name which was called freelancegraphicdesigner.co.uk. It was perfect because that's Brilliant. Exactly what I was, and it was a domain name that was about to expire. And I thought, I wonder if this guy's going to bother to renew this, and he didn't. I knew the exact day where it became available, and I bought it for £5. And then I built a whole career off the back of the domain name that had a bit of historical links to it and stuff like that. Yeah. So I built over about 10 years. I then, became quite successful and then built up the portfolio and had a good establishment. Now I've worked for some really big brands, Adidas, Accenture, the BBC. I'll go into the BBC in a bit, but big sports brands, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Petronas. I was doing stuff for designing with Lewis Hamilton, all this sort of stuff. Loads and loads of big stuff. MTV, Hilton, loads and loads of big brand stuff. All right, so I had all that in my portfolio. And so then the next transition was that I was actually seeing the emergence of Fiverr, and let alone the emergence of AI. But I saw Fiverr and I was thinking, I'm actually losing out a lot of work as a designer to Fiverr. People can't really distinguish the difference so much. They don't really know, some of the big brands they do. Obviously they hire people like me, but I was also dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs and smaller companies, and that, I was building a lot of brands and starting proof of the growth. Because when you're a designer, you're not just a designer, you're kind of like a marketer person, you're an advisor, like all these different things, marketing techniques. There's so much that goes into that, because as a freelancer, it was like, oh, can you do this? You've got to sort of find a way of being able to do it. Otherwise you don't get any money. So I was actually had a whole suite of skills and just I'm rambling a bit here, but just to go back to that connection with the BBC, I was working for an agency in that role, and one of their clients was the BBC, and their brief was to create presentation decks or interactive presentations for all their main shows to sell abroad, because they make much more money exporting their programs than they do from the license fees. So things like Top Gear, for example, was actually they wanted to export that across the world, and America wanted to do their own version of it. So we exported that through the use of pitch decks and graphics and presentations to sell that. Another one was Strictly Come Dancing. That was a huge global brand. Billions have gone through that, and so those two in particular. And then you've got BBC Earth, which was also being exported, Doctor Who, CBBS, lots and lots of franchises and models that needed presentations. And I think something like Strictly Come Dancing, actually that presentation, because you're doing with a multimedia company, it's got to be pretty impressive, the level of detail in that show is insane, and the tension. I did this whole video montage where it's like people calling out all the different camera angles and all this. It was just very, very intense, but also you've got to show all the metrics of it. So how does it make money? How does it do this? What's the commercialization structure of it? And I think without those presentations, I don't think the BBC would have actually had as much of a reach. But anyway, so that was kind of like my sort of first introduction into what it takes to get a presentation to that level. But also I'd worked with lots of independent companies that were also raising, and some bigger companies that were raising and stuff like that. So I actually built up a whole portfolio of pitch deck work. Now, I actually, after COVID, I decided to leave London. It was a bit miserable in London in COVID. I don't know if anyone listening sort of knows that, but actually went and moved back to Bournemouth, back down south, got a house, and with all of that, there was got to get, as solopreneurs like we all are, buying a house is not always easy because they don't take into account your earnings. It's more about what the business does. So I had to make sure that the business was doing really well as freelance graphic designer, as a business. Now, when I got the house, I could then kind of take a bit of a chance as to what I was going to do next. So the next big move for me is to work out, and I worked with a business coach. His name was Patrick O'Connell. And he was absolutely fundamental to changing everything the way I thought about it, because what he was doing is he was deliberately reaching out to people who were selling their time for money, especially in the design space. Selling their time for money, stop selling your time for money, sell a high value result, and the higher the value of the result, the more you can charge, and that was the new business model. So I realized that actually what was the highest value result I'd ever delivered? Well, it was the work on the pitch decks, the stuff but I didn't have the full picture. So what I had to do is I had to work out what extra value can I give to people other than the pitch deck. And the feedback that I got, and it's always good to talk to your actual audience about this, the feedback was, well, we can sort of do the pitch deck, but we can't connect to investors. So it's like, okay, well, actually, if I solve that problem, then that's going to be a big, value change, value transformation that I can give to clients. It also differentiates me from anyone else that builds pitch decks. There's people that build pitch decks. There's people that have networks and connect people. There's not really anyone that does the full thing. And then people do want to have one person to do the whole thing. So that was it. And I bought the domain name Scrub the Deck. I trademarked it because I was talking about that. It's really important to own your name. So if you can get a .com and a trademark, that's kind of it. That's an asset that will grow with it. So I formed that, and I started reaching out. And I started reaching out first to investors. I wanted to speak to investors, build my own network of investors, and actually ask them, what are the key ingredients for the pitch deck? What do you have to see? What does every business need to show you? And how efficient can I make that process? And how can I productize that into something that's easy to understand? So that's it, really. That's the full story of Scrub the Deck. Now I can use the pitch deck structure that those investors have given me, formulate it with my clients, make the pitch decks that we want to see, and then give it back to those investors. And then I've just started building up. I do lots of cold outreach to founder networks. I do LinkedIn ads. I do LinkedIn outreach, and building up the investor community. And now I've got a different packages for different areas. So I've got a new bootstrapper package, which is less of one-on-one time, but more sort of training. So sort of, that's a possibility to scale. So yeah, that's and it's just continuing to evolve. And like I say, Scrubber Deck is still quite a young brand. It's only maybe about 2.5 years old, but I've already started to get some people investment and some good success.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way you slightly reverse engineered it from the fact that, you're working, actually, your main client is people coming to you. They need some funding. They need a pitch deck put together. But what you did on the front end was speak to the people actually providing that funding and say, what is it you want to see? And having that real understanding means that you can actually, rather than just make something look pretty, which you would have done anyway, actually you're delivering the information that is really beneficial. So you're almost making it easier for the investors as well to understand what is it I'm investing in, what am I being asked for, what is the idea here. So is that sort of, when people say understanding your target market, understanding the end user, I guess, and on what they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the language that investors speak and the language that founders speak is completely different. And I kind of see myself as a bit of a translator. Like if founders wanted to say things one way, and I'll tell them exactly how that sounds to the investor, and then they'll go, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't say that. And they go, no, you shouldn't. So, and I've learned that from just interacting with a lot of investors and seeing a hell of a lot of work get rejected, and doing why is that rejected? Why didn't you want to invest in that? Or what was the problem with that? And they'll tell me, and I go, oh, okay. And you start to get insights. And at the same time, I'm doing Zoom calls like this with investors and just asking them. It's just good to make a connection. And when you actually reach out and ask for advice, you're not actually selling anything. You're not, just I say, I just would love to bend your ear, get your advice, get your expert opinion. People are pretty generous with their time, actually, even investors at that, and just it just is so valuable, and that's what people, they don't tend to do that. You're absolutely right, like to get the actual information directly from the source, because that's the money. They're the money. That's the source, and so you've got to keep them happy. That was always the philosophy.
Yeah. And getting that investment for a business, can be completely game changing, because there's lots of people out there who have great ideas, but ideas don't always go anywhere, do they? They sort of, without that investment, without that drive, because while lots of people are, whether it's purpose driven or trying to do something for the greater, actually without the money, it falls over.
Yes. Well, I always say ideas are worth nothing. It's that thing, Thomas Edison's quote.
Execution, isn't it?
Well, it's the 1%. Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And really, I didn't understand that quote for a long time, and then suddenly it clicked. It's like, the idea bit is the easy bit. Anyone can have a brilliant idea in the bath, whatever, just like relax. Oh my God, what a great idea! It's worth nothing until you actually implement it. And it's the implementation, it's that 99% sweat equity to actually get this thing off the ground. And then to realize that actually your original idea is not right anyway. The original idea, however good it sounds, when you put it out to an audience, they go, oh, I don't get it. Or no, what if it could do this? Or I don't really like that bit of the idea. What if it can do this? And it's that iteration that actually, when you listen to the market, like I could have done a pitch deck product, which I thought investors would have liked. But it wasn't right. And until I got that feedback and kept changing it to exactly what they want to see, no matter how counterintuitive it may seem to you, that's the real gold. That's the feedback. That's the sweat equity that will change the product and will get you viral growth and recommendations and big success.
Yeah, I always love it when you hear of sort of, products that solve a problem that they weren't necessarily originally designed for. Quite often people come up with an idea, and it's only when it goes out in the real world, actually, you can see how it's being used. And, you see, IKEA is a great one with IKEA hacks. People change a bit of furniture to suit better needs. And then actually you start to realize there's a market there.
Yeah.
And, often that product needs to be out there, tested, refined, and then that's when you're going to get the major investment.
Yeah, and actually there's a slide in my deck which shows that it's the journey, the evolution of the product, the amount of times that it had, your version 1 that bombed, your version 2 that got a bit better, your version 3 that suddenly became viral. It's that journey. Like, investors want to see that you've already spent your own time and money to get to that point. You're at that product market fit phase because you've been through that journey, and now it's just the only thing that's left is money. Now when I plug money into that, it can really take off and it can really scale. It's not plugging money into that to do the version 3, the version 4, the version 5, which then gets product market fit. So if you can show that product maturity and prove product market fit when you go to raise, which a lot of people can't do and they don't do, or they're not communicating it effectively, if you can do that, you'll get investment.
Yeah, is that sort of that fail fast mentality? Yeah. Do you sort of believe in that?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, all the biggest successful people have failed their way to success. They literally have. And I think the investors realize that as well. You think about the amount of investors of their own money that's gone down the drain on things that they've thought have been good. And it seems that all the metrics are there, and yet it doesn't make money. That's why they'll find that you're dealing with a pretty cynical bunch. They've heard it all before. They've seen it all before. They won't believe a word you say. Even if the evidence is there, they still will be very cautious because they've seen it before. They've seen something that looks like a grand slam, and it hasn't been. And there's been other stuff that surprised them. So you can't take anything for granted. Like, you've got to show as much evidence as possible.
Yeah. You see it even with some of the big companies. I mean, I'm a big sort of Apple fan in their market. They've had products that have failed. Coca-Cola have had it. They've launched something. And you think, actually, things don't always work, but you need to then know, I guess maybe, do you think investors, or not investors, the founders need to know when to keep refining or when to stop? Because I'm a big believer in perseverance, but do you think there's ever a time when you actually go, no, this just is not going to work?
Well, it's not selling, is it? If something, it's all about. That's why look at Dragon's Den. They always go to let's talk about numbers. Because everything can sound good. It can sound good. It can look good on paper, but until you actually generate the sales, no one knows. You don't know yourself as a founder. The investor certainly doesn't know, and the investor's not going to believe you if you say, "Oh, we think this will sell. We believe this will sell." No, like what have you sold? And how many people that have bought have continued to buy? How many people have continued to use it? What's your stickability? What's your recommendation rates? What's the virality of it? All the big unicorn brands, like, Google never advertised, Facebook never advertised. It was all viral, completely viral. So you can show that, and I just had one of the conversations I had just before this was about that. Like that they were kind of just on the brink of revenue, generating some revenue, didn't advertise, had 500 users, and it's like, right, well, let's actually ascertain the stats from those 500 users. How quick was it? An acceleration curve of those 5 users? Was it a gentle? Because all of those different metrics will show different periods of virality. If it is a steep curve upwards, suddenly it got up. That shows a kind of viral effect. If it was more gradual, then maybe that's your marketing kicking in, or whatever. But and what's the stickability? How long have they hung about and used it? How many interactions did they make with other users? All that sort of stuff. It all paints a picture, and you can do that when you've got actual users. That's why it's so difficult to raise pre-revenue or pre-MVP. It's almost impossible because you haven't got that data, that real data. Then it becomes science and not hypothesis.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of founders then go into that angel investment and trying to raise money from friends and family, which can be brilliant, but it's always, I guess, challenging when something fails and actually it's your friends and family who have invested in you. Do you see that with founders? Yes,
I mean that when you're at the idea phase, the money that you can raise pretty much is friends and family. They're the ones that really trust you, and by the way, they'll forgive you if you do make a mess of it. They will, because they've taken the chance. There's not no one's twisting anyone's arm. They believe in you. They want to give you that, and it's okay if you do fail, you fail. I mean, investors certainly have lost money as well, but that'll get you to a sort of MVP phase, that kind of friends. Sometimes I get people asking me, and they say, "Oh, I only want to raise 20,000," and I go, "Well, that's not me. That's I don't deal with numbers in that range, because it's no investor's going to be interested in just putting 20,000 potentially there. They want to. That's your kind of. You could do that with the friends and family raise or loans or whatever, but get that money together and show that you've spent that wisely to get a result. If you can get to a point where you're getting users and feedback, and that sort of fail fast, or that version 1 that's absolutely not ready, but will give you tons and tons of interesting feedback and ideas of how to develop it, what to dump and what to really develop. But yeah, so certainly, up to about 50,000, you're looking at, depending how rich your friends and family are, but that's potentially what you could raise. Obviously,
your initial network, I guess, of people who know and like you and trust you. And I guess, what have you learned within your own business from sort of running this? Because we spoke about fail fast. You pivoted into doing these pitch decks. Was it talking to investors? Was that a real game changer for the understanding, or how did you learn as you went?
I pretty much learned it all from the investors. I mean, there was a lot. Obviously, I go to all the potential resources that I could possibly have, YouTube, Google, all that, and read as much as possible. There's some good books as well. But mainly what I got from talking to investors, because that's an interactive process, So I find the best way to learn is just to keep asking dumb questions. And when I talk to my clients, like I say, look, I'm going to ask you just the dumbest questions possible, just so I can get my head around it. And the more complicated, so I do a lot of crypto blockchain stuff, and some of that I don't understand it, and I just have to keep asking questions. They're really simple stuff, but eventually I'll get to the point, and then I'll go and I'll sort of synthesize all that, and I go, oh, okay, it's a bit like X. It's a bit like X multiplied by Y, or I'll just give a little formula. They go, oh, actually, hadn't thought about it like that, but that's actually quite a good way of explaining it. And it takes a lot of breaking something down to then decide what it actually is. And that's what I did with the investors. I kept asking them questions about, why is that done like that? And why is that done like that? And then I can feed back that information to the clients. I go, well, this is why it's done like that. And this is why the investor's going to think that. This is why this, So yeah, for me, it was talking to investors themselves was the biggest thing.
I think you hear it a lot, certainly with tech companies and tech founders. It's that, I suppose they have to start realizing that almost no one cares about their tech.
No one cares.
And but actually what they often do is talk about the tech when trying to market it and get investment but actually it's asking those questions, breaking it down and going to the end user and the problem there. And I've had a couple of tech founders say to me, it was a game changer when I understood no one cared about the tech. And so I loved it.
Absolutely, yeah, and as a tech founder, you want to be waxing lyrical about it, but it doesn't make any difference. The interesting thing is, the higher you go up in terms of the amount of money that you ask for, even less they care about it. Like I know this guy, he came in to do a talk to a business network, in fact, the MDS network that we're part of. So Alex, he was talking about when he was going to private equity. You're talking like 100 million type exit. He was really shocked that they didn't hardly look at the product at all. It was all because they don't need to. Because if you're selling £1 million worth of a product, it works. There's no question of product market fit. There's no question of success, virality, recommendation is all there. It's what else? What else are we going to look at? Now, if you don't have the revenue, then it's like, well, okay, we can't look at the revenue. So what else can we look at? We can look at what's the founder done. Has the founder delivered a similar product before? Well, that's de-risking it. Is the market strong enough? Have you tested? Have you run test ad campaigns? That's another interesting way to do it. You can actually run an ad campaign to see a popularity of something before you have the product. You can run an advertising campaign to see if people want to buy this concept and to build a waiting list. One of the people on my podcast, Neil Smith, he's just launched his app, Metal, which is a mental health app, but he's rebranded it Mental Fitness. But part of his strategy was to actually work on the statistics from an ad campaign to see if it was profitable. And it was. He absolutely smashed it with all the metrics possible before he'd even coded it. That was really interesting. Like that sort of blew my mind as to you're actually starting with a concept that looks like product market fit first, and then going backwards to build that product. And that was very clever.
Building those waiting lists, I've heard that before as well. Just test the market. Are people going to be interested in it? You don't even have to build the product. Have your idea. Find out if people are interested in it, and it just gives you some initial data. Because unfortunately, without the data, we fall back on just our own, maybe our emotional attachment to this idea, which isn't always the most valid.
Most people come up with an idea in the bath. They get so excited about that idea that they just go hell for leather, spend their own money, build a brand, build a website, build a product, spend thousands, and then go, right, let's try and get customers now. And then realizing that people don't get it, people don't understand it, people don't need it, people want something slightly different. And instead of iterating that product, you just keep spending money on marketing and keep trying to push it. And eventually you go bankrupt. And you scratch your head and you wonder why. And that happens so much. Like you said, you're absolutely right. They get absolutely attached to their idea. They are convinced that it's the best thing ever. Unfortunately, it's sad to say, but a lot of people that I deal with, they kind of have almost an entitlement that because their idea is so good, they can't believe why no one's not clambering over each other to give them £1 million to build it or to make it or to do whatever. And that first mentality shift is to shift out of the fact that you're not a unique special snowflake, like you're nothing, you're a tenner penny founder with an idea, and you're in a pool of a hell of a lot of other people in that, and you've got to be something special to stand out to get these people's attention. And that real hard work is to get product market fit and to work out what people want and what people are going to buy. And sometimes how they're going to buy it. That might be a way.
I can see that how, and I believe there's some of the ideas I've had over the years, you sort of think it's amazing. And I always often tell the story in the office. We used to have sort of Matt's big idea board, because otherwise I'd have this idea, I'd come in, I'd disrupt everything we're working on. Right, we've got this idea, we're going to work on this. Like, write it up on that board and leave it a week. And I was amazed how many times I came back to it, scrubbed it off, thinking, what was I thinking? But I could have had 4 people working on that for an entire day, because it was that new idea, and neglecting something else. So, taking stock of your ideas can be really key. I've got to ask about the music. Do you still play? Do you still perform? What do you do outside of work?
I do. It's more of a creative release. It's not. There's a difference between, being in a band and taking it seriously and just playing for fun. And I very much just play for fun now. Every 2 weeks, I get some people together in Bournemouth and we just get together in a studio and we just make some noise. A lot of them, they're kind of, I play drums, I play bass guitar. You see the bass guitar there. So we kind of swap around and we just make noise. It's pretty messy. I could drop a link to it. It's called the Loud Hadron Collider, like the Large Hadron Collider. I don't know if you know it's physics or whatever, but it's like, the collision of different ideas and styles. It's pretty messy. It's just for our own benefit, but it is an amazing creative outlet. And you get these moments, like I've never been one to meditate, but I totally get it. I totally get people having this experience of this kind of flow state where you get it through. You could get it through dance, you get it through painting, walking. Some people can sit there and just do it from breathing, but it's the same kind of feeling. You don't. When I get it through music, you just sort of play and you're just in this zen state. You're not thinking about anything. You're just kind of being the music, and that's what's really special and exciting about it. When you're doing a band, you're relentlessly rehearsing something, so it's so perfect to play it. By the time you're out there ready to play it in front of an audience, you're almost bored of it because you've rehearsed it that many times. You're kind of sick of it. Whereas I didn't want to do it. This is not for live. This is just for like YouTube and just for fun. It's a mental health therapeutic thing, and everyone gets the same buzz off it. But if you listen to it, it's pretty. It sounds pretty awful to most people.
But it is that release, isn't it? And you said about whether it's meditation, walking and things like that. It's almost trying to get you in that, I guess, living in the moment state where you are just just enjoying that time.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard for business owners because we're often thinking about all the stuff we've got to do, thinking about the things the clients are asking us to do, thinking about a new idea we've had, but actually just to try and be in that moment,
Yeah.
it is really helpful, but can be quite challenging.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is. And yeah, it's very important. The thing is, your great ideas and your energy actually comes from being away from work, I find. Like, because we can overwork and we can get into states, and your brain's so fill up you can't think of anything, and that's why you go on holiday or something. Suddenly, ideas come back, and brainwaves come back, and actually simpler ways to do things. So it's very important to have times where you switch off. You have to have the switch off times, and as a business owner, if you're I've got a couple of people now helping me at work, which is good. But when I've been a solopreneur for a very long time, it's only recently that I've got people in. Yeah, and I know exactly what it's like just projects after projects, and to have that headspace is difficult. But yeah, that's where the good ideas come from. You have to unplug. You have to take time off.
Yeah. There's that old Zen saying, and I think I've said it on the podcast before, and I might get it slightly wrong, but it's generally, everyone should meditate for 10 minutes a day, unless you're really busy, and then you should do an hour. And
Right,
yeah. And it's just that principle of I've get it where I've got so much on, I've got bits of paper on my desk, emails are pinging. I feel like I've got so much to do.
Yeah.
Actually, the most productive thing I can do is step away from the desk, walk to a local shop 10 minutes away and back.
Yeah.
And actually then I just crack on and do it. But
Yeah.
while you're in that state of almost, rabbit in the headlights of I've got so much to do, I don't know what to do. Actually taking a break is often the best thing. And it seems counterproductive.
Yeah.
And it's something I've had to learn, and almost it comes a little bit more naturally now, but not fully. I do have to at times remind myself, no, Matt, just stop it. Just stop it. And then I creep back into, look, I'll just do this and then I'll take a break. No, take your break now. But it's not easy.
No, it's not. I'm quite lucky of the way where I live, because when they're in summer now, as the time of recording, now it's actually raining at the moment, which is quite typical. But on a sunny day, I will just take an hour out, get on my bike, cycle to the beach, swim in the sea, and cycle back. And that's been just phenomenal. And I'm very lucky that I live that close to the beach that I can do that. But anything, a walk, even like taking time away from it's. But I think the deeper you can unplug, the better the ideas that will come. So that's why I think that holidays and even just taking a day off or something, and actually deliberately not thinking about work. Your subconscious is working on it all the time. Your subconscious is that thing when you're a kid and they say read the exam paper first, or answer the questions you can answer and leave the rest at the end. When I actually started doing that as a kid, when I went back to answer the questions, I worked out that my brain had actually worked out the answer. It's the same with business. Like you can have problems, and the more you sit and think about them, the less likely you are to solve them. If you completely detach and just go, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do something completely different, the subconscious works on these problems for you, and then when you go back to it, you can fix it.
Yeah. I mean, it's based around that principle of, you go out and get a new car and you pick it in a unique color, you see this green and it's lovely and you think, I'm going to get that like no one else. And then as soon as you're driving back, you see all these cars in the same green because your brain is aware of it, I mean, and it's exactly the same. When you've got a problem, actually park it, go to sleep. Your brain will work it out overnight. And I think there's definitely more of a culture around talking about taking breaks, things like that. I think we've lived in the hustle culture quite a long time. And I think it's actually clear or important to say, if you are a founder, you are going to have to work hard at times. There's no getting away from that. But understanding that actually taking breaks can really benefit you is key to learn early on. Yeah,
especially if you're in a creative space. Like a lot of what I've always been a creative person, and it's all about creativity. There's times where you have to just mundanely get on with tasks, but I found that that's where you want to hire people. You want to hire people to do those things that don't take up so much of your own brain power and can be outsourced. That'll free up your thinking for the more global stuff. I've recently taken on someone to take on the sales calls because I was, there's a lot of people that want to raise, okay? And I do a lot of outreach and there's a lot of conversations to be had. But if I find that I'm on Zoom all day talking to all these prospects, I don't have the energy and the mental space to actually do the important work that I need to do to deliver on the results and to get the quality. So I had to hire someone to take on the sales calls. As soon as I did that, it's like, wow, I've got my brain back and I could start thinking about things. I could start planning campaigns and improving the product, because that's what a lot of people don't bother to do. They don't, the work on improving the products and making it better and better and better. Like mine's always evolved for the last 2.5 years. And I could continue to evolve, and I think that's so important. Most people say when you start just consistently doing one thing, that's good, but you'll find that a competitor can come along and suddenly, what's happened to all our customers? Well, they've all gone over there. So
working on the business rather than necessarily in it. To keep pushing.
And that's a cliche,
is
but it's so important. And most people just don't have the time to work on the business.
No. But like you say, getting rid of some of those other tasks, I guess it's a double benefit. One, it gives you the time to work on the business, like we said, but equally, like you said, we all suffer from that decision fatigue or just, the mental capacity. Like you say, if I've spent an entire morning doing things that are tedious and I don't enjoy, I'm quite upfront. I say, spreadsheets are not my thing at all. If I've spent a morning doing finance things, actually, I'm done in the afternoon. My brain can't, come up with anything creative. We are all just like any bit of, sort of putting fuel in the tank. It's that. And once you're running low, actually, you're not going to perform.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your top tip to finish off today? What would be your top tip to a founder? They've maybe got an idea, got a product, long term, they might not have even considered investment at that stage because they probably haven't. I'm guessing a lot of people have this idea and think I can just make this thing and everyone's going to buy it, not realizing that it's quite a journey. What would be your top tip to someone who's had that idea in the bath and hasn't done anything yet?
Well, they've got to do everything they can off their own energy and finance to give enough evidence for themselves, let alone anything else, that actually people are going to buy this thing, and be completely open to the fact that they might not be, and be open to the fact they might give you new ideas, and be open that if you haven't built anything, you're at the perfect point to pivot to any direction possible. So the main thing is to listen to the customers. So absolutely get it all starts with an idea, of course, and just be prepared to be flexible on that. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort to get to that point of product market fit. This is going to sell. Oh, there's a lot of people wanting this, and then you can start to build it. But most people build before they've proven it. So try and do everything you can to prove it first. That's my top tip.
David, thank you so much for your insights today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Wish you all the best with your business and pivoting and changing and growing as you do. But thank you for your insights, and we'll put a link to your band below as well.
Well, put a link to the business. That's the main thing.
Scrubthedeck.com, obviously. Scrubthedeck.com, but also, some of the music for people to get to know you as well. But thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.